Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of Crumbz. I am so excited that you are here, that you decided to join, whether you are watching me visually on YouTube or you are listening to us from your favorite podcasting platform. I appreciate however you decide to listen to our content, right? So let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Shanice. I am your host and commentator of Crumbz. I also created the platform, and if I could be quite honest, I'm a little nervous today, which I know is probably absolutely ridiculous because I am sitting in a room by myself. Nobody is in here, and I'm only talking to the camera. But it is what it is, which opens, the door for this platform. This show will be authentic and transparent. So thank you so much for joining in. I thought that it would be a great idea to just sit down and introduce myself. You can get to know a little bit about me and why I started this platform, why I created this platform, and what the purpose of Crumbz will be. Okay, so I did ask some people to send me some questions to kind of help me narrate and talk through this conversation. I was like, I don't really know what to say about myself, and I don't want to give away too much, season 1, episode 1. So, what should I say? So, I had some good people send me some questions, okay? And we're going to get started. So, let's see. Where are you from? Everybody, I am born and raised in Kansas City, okay? And to be clear, Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas. Yes, there is a difference. And if you are a native from either of those places, then you understand why. But I am in Kansas City, Missouri, home of the Super Bowl winning Chiefs. Okay? I hope I didn't lose nobody already. Next question. What is my favorite food? So I am a lover of food. Okay. To be quite honest, I think I love it a little bit too much. But traditionally, my favorite would be seafood and Italian food. Now, I like all food though. So soul food, Mexican food, Asian inspired food. I love Caribbean food, Jamaican food, African food. But as recently, the last 90 days, I've actually been plant based. So my taste buds are recultivating, and I am actually learning to love new foods because, yeah, I have to. So that was a good question. Thank you so much for asking. But just because I said I'm plant-based, if y'all ever see me eating a piece of shrimp, piece of chicken, I might have backslidden that day. Don't hold me to it. This is a journey that I am walking through, okay? Because you might see it, especially on this platform with some of the guests that we are going to have. There's going to be some eating on this platform. And no, that is not why I named the show Crumbz, which leads me to my next question. Why is the show named Crumbz? Okay, and it was actually a little bit longer, but I'm going to paraphrase the question. So to answer the question, I named this platform Crumbz for several reasons. Originally, this was supposed to be named Breadcrumbs, okay? And it represented the trail of like breadcrumbs. I started to think over my life and how all of these people, teachers and choir directors and individuals, mentors, like they sold these things into me. They would speak life into me. And as I started to get older, I kind of had to like follow that trail, right? Like remember the things that were spoken to me and over me and how they encourage me. So I was like, oh, breadcrumbs, it leads you backwards or it leads you forward. And then I was like, I don't want it to be named breadcrumbs because it sounded real like an Italian restaurant, like we're gonna be eating pizza. And so I was like, okay, Lord, I prayed about it, and I was like, you really gotta help me out, and I said, should it be breadcrumbs or should it be crumbs? And I kid you not, the exact same night, I went to a meeting, I went to an outreach, and the speaker was speaking, and she literally kept referencing crumbs and how a lot of us feel like God has just, given us the scraps, how we're always barely making it, how it just feels like there are just crumbs. Like, God, you're like, I'm just getting the crumbs, like just the droppings, the leftovers. And so it resonated so well with me, and I was like, thank you, right? But I started to see it in a different light. I didn't look at it as like crumbs as insignificant. When I started to think about it, I'm like, no, literally, crumbs are the little things. Crumbs are the little pieces. But if you have enough, like, you'll look back and realize that God did sustain you. And so for me, I was like, this is it. Crumbs leave a trail. Crumbs are small nuggets, small pieces of things that people feel like aren't important. Like, oh, that's just the crumbs at the bottom of the box. Like, no, those are the crumbs. And when you put crumbs back together, you have something that is whole. So I named it Crumbz because it was something that really resonated with my heart. I pray that I explained that clear so that everyone can understand. But that is the name, guys, Crumbz. And so, including myself and every guest that I have on, we will leave you with a small crumb for you to take with you, that hopefully will just resonate right here in your heart. Yeah. Okay, so Crumbz, and it's with a Z, not an S, because we got to add a little sauce, a little flavor to everything that we do. So that is why it is named Crumbz. Okay, so what was the purpose? What will be the purpose of the platform? Why? Okay, what will be the purpose of the platform? So, to be honest, originally I wanted to create a platform specifically to speak to business owners, right? I wanted to have discussions about the purpose behind the person, and we absolutely will do that. Like, we will have a slew of successful entrepreneurs and business owners on the show. But then as I got closer to the launch, I started to really realize, like, wait a minute, the whole intent of this platform, this show, is to just discuss purpose and authenticity and life. It's not specific to just a group of entrepreneurs, because there are people who are living purposeful lives and living in calling and walking in calling who are not business owners. They may be a mother, right? So there's purpose in every season. And so this show will be about life. Now, of course, it's going to be information that is important. You're going to be able to learn something from it, grow out of what you are receiving. But I just didn't want to close it off anymore. So just to answer your question, it's going to be a thought-provoking, purpose-filled conversation platform. We're going to talk about a little bit of everything. We're going to talk to different people from different backgrounds that have different careers. We are going to talk. There is faith talk on my platform. I'm going to continue to say that because I don't want anybody to be like, whoa, she's talking about Jesus. I am, and I'm going to talk about Jesus here. And so I hope that you join in and you learn a little bit more and lean in. And also, like, as I grow and as I learn, I want to engage in conversations with other people, other individuals who are also growing and learning. Like, I have so much to learn. And so as I grow and as I learn, I just thought that I would bring you guys along. Right? So that will be the purpose of this podcast, is to talk about a little bit of everything. Okay? What is my professional background? Now, who asked this question? Um, so my professional background is a little bit all over the place. Okay. So I started out really young. My very, 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 I'm gonna take y'all back, just tell y'all everything. Okay. My very first job was, I was a cook at a local restaurant here, by the name of Wing Busters. Okay, some of the best chicken I have ever tasted and cooked in my life. Okay, so I worked that job at the age of 15 all the way into graduation, where I then started working at Quick Trip, which, if you guys don't know, is a large gas station chain in the Midwest. And at that point in my life, as a teenager and as a young adult, I was just working to make money to eat, to live. Okay. I then was blessed with another job as a mutual funds representative, where pretty much it was just data entry. Again, I needed a job to eat, to live. Also, while I was in school, I was in college. And so I did that for several years. I literally stayed at all of my jobs a minimum of 3 to 4 years. I stayed in my positions, which is a good thing, but it's a bad thing too. And we can talk about that, more about that later. I then went on to a position called a solution specialist, which was pretty much, I worked with software. I taught and trained marketing professionals how to use the software that they were selling to their clients. So it was a little bit of IT, a little bit of project management. It was solution driven. And I was there. That was actually my last actual corporate job. I left there in 2020 during the height of the pandemic, and I went full-fledged business owner. I had already started a financial business. I was a financial advisor with an emphasis in life insurance. I'm still licensed, by the way, but that was what I did for years and years and years. And then, mind you, all of these things are overlapping. So all of my jobs in my businesses have overlapped, right? You talking about over the course of 4 and 5 years, everything has overlapped. I don't know if I've ever worked one job at a time. So I was a financial advisor, and I absolutely loved it. Okay, I was meeting with families. I was teaching financial principles that was, changing lives. I was introducing people to topics that they had never heard of. And then, while I was running and operating my business, my husband started a lawn care business. And so I have been his operations manager ever since. And that has just been what I've been doing. And it has opened the door for me to do project management, operations management, and creative directing, which I'm finding is something that I absolutely love. And it also kind of led me to this. It was like, I have this thing inside of me that wants to be creative, and I need a place to do it on my own terms, in my own way. So that, I am creating like a new career. I'm creating like my own arena. I am currently processing what is it exactly that I want to do. Of course, I'm doing this. I'm podcasting. I am doing small creative directing jobs, but I am like really in the process of understanding, okay, God, what is it that I could, should, would like to do, and then making that happen. So, yeah, That was a long spiel, but that is my professional background. So I've literally dibbled and dabbled in about everything, and everything has kind of worked to my progression. Like my very first job working at Wing Busters taught me probably the most. It taught me the most, absolutely. Especially now as an entrepreneur, there are things that I remember from working that job. You know, there were times, I'm 15, 16, where the bosses had to leave us there to run the restaurant. So that means cooking, that means running the restaurant, because they had to make sure that the restaurant had food, and they had to do this and they had to do that. But let me tell you something else that job taught me. That job taught me discipline and how to do things correctly. The owner of that establishment, boss man, hey, if you're watching, he did not take no stuff. Okay, the kitchen was going to be clean a certain way. The eating area was going to be cleaned a certain way, you know, and it had to be done. It had to be done with precision. It taught me superior micromanagement skills. Like, listen, okay, you may be on the register 1 second and you may be dipping, pulling chicken, and making orders the next second. But it taught me endurance. It taught me how to stay on my feet. It taught me how to not respond to people, because you know customers will be customers. Like, it taught me so much in that season of my life that literally trickled over into every single other area. So if you are watching, Mr. B, you were one of those that dropped a crumb in my life, and so I really, really appreciate it. But yeah, all right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, you mentioned that the podcast will include faith talk. So, what advice would you give a new believer? You know, I would start by saying perfection is not the goal. Salvation is. Um, when we come into the walk, the faith walk, the Christian walk, we can sometimes feel like this pressure to be perfect, and we want to do everything. Like, how do I say this? Allow Jesus and the Holy Spirit to transform you into who he is, that who he would have you to be. There is no such thing as perfection. So if you are chasing perfection, it is unattainable, because it is not real. Now, we want to have conviction and we do want to change, but sometimes we can change and we can try so hard to be perfect that we lose a sense of identity, um, and in self. We become unauthentic to ourselves, our personalities, our just everything. And yes, we are dying to our flesh, and he is creating a new being. Um, but he still created you to be you. And so anything that you need to change or work on, God will help you do that with the help of the Holy Spirit. So I would say take the pressure off, and do not chase perfection. Do not chase perfection. Chase relationship with Jesus Christ, and everything else will be added unto you. Okay? Get you a community. Like, you have to have a community. Whether this be your community, whether you find you a church home, whether you find you someone who will disciple you, that is super important. But you have to have a community. God did not create us to walk alone or to walk with him alone. Like, it is so important as a believer to have somebody that you can call on, who can pray for you, who can pray with you, who can have honest conversations with you. So yeah, just don't chase perfection. Chase relationship with Jesus, and get you a community. Get you a really good community. Okay, let's see what's next. What led you to starting a podcast? I probably should have put these questions in a better order because that should have came after Crumbz. But we're gonna work on it as the season progresses, okay? You know, we working on it. What led me to start a podcast? To be honest, obedience. Obedience. I wanted to or had the desire to start a YouTube channel about 12 years ago, 2011. I was in my senior year of high school, and I was like, oh, I didn't really know what an influencer was. I don't know if an influencer was necessarily the title at that time. I'm not sure, but I just looked at it and I was like, oh, this looks like something like I could do this, and I think I would want to do this. But I remember my mom being like, you want to get on the camera and talk to people? Like, just talk to people out in the world. And it was a valid question. And at that time, my focus, of course, would have been natural hair. I was a senior in high school. I had did the big chop, and I wanted to, just focus on that. And so as time progressed, I didn't do it. I just didn't have the courage to do it. I didn't have the courage to record myself. I just did not have the courage. And then years went by, responsibility happened, and I continued like, God, I was at jobs and I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I was like, God, what am I supposed to do? And somehow he would always bring me back to YouTube. Now, it may have not been, natural hair. The subject has changed, but the platform or what I feel led to do has not changed. And within the so then specifically right before the pandemic, I was like, you know what? I want to be a successful entrepreneur. And so I was like, okay, let me create a platform where I can talk to successful entrepreneurs. And that was almost 4 years ago. So again, I'm praying, Lord, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm so bored. I don't feel like I'm in my purpose. I don't feel like I'm this. I don't feel like I'm that. And he continued to point me in the direction of this. And I was like, okay, I have to do it. I have to start the podcast. I have to be obedient because I just don't know what it is that God is trying to do. Because, he gives you one step at a time. Back to the believer question. God to give you one step at a time. So don't get impatient with him. So for me, I was like, okay, start a channel or start a podcast, and then what? Then what? And can you fill in the gaps for me, Jesus? And, he gives you one thing at a time. And so why did I start a podcast? Obedience. It's that simple. Obedience. Were you afraid to start the podcast? Yes. Didn't I start off this video by saying that I'm nervous? Absolutely. Absolutely. I scared, nervous, just because the internet is something different. I feel like even 10 years ago, the internet wasn't what it was. Social media wasn't what it is now. And yeah. So for him to call me forward and not only call me forward to open my mouth and speak, but to speak about, to come from a vulnerable place, like we're going to talk about things and we're going to share things that has happened to me and some of my guests. This is very vulnerable. It's very real. And to put that out in front of the world, things that you are taught are supposed to be behind closed doors, yeah, it's a little bit scary. But I am at the point in my life now where it's like I can be scared and I can be afraid, but I just no longer want to be a slave to fear. God did not create me to be that way. Like, he said I can do all things through Christ, right? And it's like, for so long, here I am, all of the ideas, all of the dreams, all of the everything, I've just never had the courage to pursue any of it. And so it gets to a point where it's like, yeah, you can be afraid, but does fear override your obedience? Is fear going to override the life that you want? Is fear going to override the example that you want to set for your children? Like, why do we just, like, why, Shanice? So, yeah, it's a little bit scary. But I'm sure as I get the hang of it, as I practice, as I, go from the next episode to the next to the next, I'm just going to believe that it's going to get a little bit less scary every single time, and I'm going to continue to be obedient. Okay? And I'm really trying to move down this list, y'all, because I don't even know how long I've been talking. I love to talk. I love to talk. And just to, like, follow up on what we just talked about, fear, I think that was the biggest thing too, was, okay, God, I want to get on this platform, but I want to be able to be myself. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to be myself. I want to talk the way that I want to talk or speak. I want to laugh as loud as I want to laugh. I want to be authentic, and I don't want to offend people. I had a really big problem, and I'm still working through, like, the fear of offending people, in the fear of ever, like, misrepresenting what it means to be a believer, or just anything, like, just any type of misrepresentation, or like, I just didn't want, I just I just, like, right, I'm just being honest a moment right now, like, that was big. And when you've been taught that your personality is too big, you are extremely loud, you are all of these things, like, the gift that I've discovered that I have, no one ever described it as positive. You talk too much, you think you know it all, you this, you're that. It wasn't until the last few years that I had people speak into my life and kind of override things that I had heard as a kid. I had my brother say, hey, you are a really good storyteller. You should be using your voice to tell stories. I've had my friends be like, do you know that you are extremely creative? And I was like, what? I'm creative? And everybody looked at me like, duh. Like, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. So I had all of these people, my husband and other close people would say, hey, you're a really good speaker. Because I had the opportunity to do public speaking. You are a really good speaker. And so within the last few years, I've had people drop crumbs and speak such positive things over me. Thank you so much to everybody who has done that. Even strangers who have approached me and addressed me and shared things with me. And that is so important, because we'll talk later in the season about how we carry things in our hearts, things that happened to us when we were 7 and 8, and it is literally dictating and controlling our narrative, what we think we can and cannot do, how we see ourselves, what we believe about ourselves. Like, it creates this pain on our heart that creates the lenses in which we see the world. And so, for those who came back and, like, helped erase it, and share positive things with me, thank you so much. Look, I'm on the couch using my voice to tell stories. So, yeah. And you know what? That is a great segue to my next two questions. What has been your biggest life struggle? I know the answer to this. I'm gonna share it. Hold on. Identity. Identity has been my biggest, hardest life struggle. Out of all the things that have happened to me, because I've had a lot of things happen in my life, I will say it absolutely has been the most difficult. And let me tell you, identity is super important because identity um, controls the narrative of who you are. It is what you believe about yourself, whether it's the truth or a lie. And it can set so many limitations around you. So I had struggled with identity for years. I could not see who I was or actually believe who I was beyond things that had happened to me in roles that I was serving in. So if you would ask me, who am I would say, oh, I'm a believer, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I work here, I do this, and my identity is not is was completely wrapped in what I was doing, or you know what I had been through. Oh, I'm a fatherless daughter. I am a this. I am a that. Like I was wearing my wounds and my roles as my identity, and it causes confusion. It causes you to not be able to set boundaries and have healthy boundaries because you're not really sure what you do like and what you don't like. You struggle with finding your likes. Like, if you would have asked me last year, well, what do you like? I would have been like, like those were my responses. And someone pointed out to me very dearly, like, this is an issue. You have an issue with identity. And I would always word it as purpose. Like every time I would pray, I would be like, God, what is my purpose? Like, what purpose do you have for me? Like, purpose has been a huge word in my vocabulary, in my prayer life for about 6, 7 years. It was always purpose, purpose, purpose. God, show me purpose. And then eventually it was like, you know what? No, like, can you show me me? Can you show me how you created me? Can you teach me who I really am? Like, God, I know that you love me, but beyond that, who am I? And that is something that He has been changing. He's been showing and revealing to me. And so it's still a little work in progress, I'm going to be honest, right? But identity has been the hugest struggle. But now that I feel like I have a good grip on it, so many other things are falling into place. Purpose is falling into place, and I want to be careful with the purpose word because again, there's purpose in different areas, different seasons, um, and so I know people use that word a lot, but I'm just telling you that was my focus word, and so as I am leaning into my identity and who He has created me to be, all of the other things are being answered too. So that would be my biggest life struggle. And I'll share more later about um, false identities and personas and personalities that come from having a lack of identity. It ain't cute, you know. It's not cute. Overcompensating because you're uncomfortable with yourself and self identity, so you overcompensate for others to prove worth and value and all of these other things. So We'll eat. We'll have to have a whole episode around that. But it was a really great question. Thank you to whomever submitted it to me. And then it says, what has been your worst habitual habit? Overthinking. Listen, listen out there on these internet highways and byways. Overthinking. I don't know if that's technically a habit or not, but I'm going to say that it is because I feel like it's some overthinking. I listen. Overthinking. All like the indecisiveness, just a little bit, but really more so overthinking. Like I will overthink the heck out of something, and it big or small, and it's not intentional. I don't want to be that way, and we're working and praying our way out of it too. So I'm not claiming that I still am, but overthinking it, that overthinking and that identity together, they just be together, right? Together. They be doing this together in my mind. And then they be jumping me and beating me up from the inside out. Like overthinking things that should not be that complicated. But in my mind, I've thought a thought. And then I can see all of the things that could happen, whether good or bad. Like there's all of these things. And what overthinking does is cause procrastination. So that leads to my second habitual habit, since y'all got me on the couch asking questions. It leads to procrastination, and it leads to a what is the word that I'm looking for when something is bigger? It leads to just like feeding the fear. Like fear becomes so much bigger when you take the time to think and think and think and think and overthink, instead of just being like, okay, I thought the thought, let me put action towards it. Or okay, I thought the thought, cool, and being done with it. But when you create this circle of thinking, it can create two things. It can create procrastination, or it can cause you to seek perfectionism. Because when I'm thinking all of these thoughts, I'm also thinking, well, how can I do it, and how can I make it good, and how can I make it? And so you're in a cycle of thinking, and you can never get out of the cycle in order to take action, which is how we get stuck in the cycles, because it just becomes these cycles, y'all. But we're breaking cycles, and we're breaking habits, and we're breaking off things that are attached to us that were never, like, they should not be attached to us. So we working through that, and we gonna talk. Listen, I cannot wait to have a guest on here to talk to y'all with me. I have some amazing people lined up too, you guys. Like, I am so excited about it. And don't get used to just this setting. This is going to be a traveling podcast, so we are going to be going from place to place, seeing new people, talking to new people, okay, about all that they are, all that they do, all that they've overcome. And I'm just really excited about it, and I hope you are too. What did you want to be growing up? So, as long as I could remember, until probably by my last year of high school, I always said that I would be an engineering architect. I remember someone sharing with me what that was when I was a little girl, and they showed me like this sketch and this design, and I said, "Oh," and I was really good at math, right? So I was like, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to be an engineering architect." And so that was my plan for years and years and years and years. And then I got older, and I started to really have a passion for injustice. And I still do. And so I said, no, I'm going to do something maybe more in the criminal arena. I didn't think that I would be a lawyer. I didn't think that I would be a lawyer, but I feel like I was going to do something in criminal law, criminal area. That's just what I started to lean towards. And I actually, you guys, went and took my test for the police academy. So for about a year, I was actually training to be a police officer. Things happen, life happens. I did pass my test though. Don't get it wrong. I passed my test, but I didn't birth. In this process, I birthed my daughter, and so I didn't go back. Like, I got scared. I was like, "Ooh, I have a baby now. I don't know if I'm supposed to be out here saving the world like that." And then after that, I never really got passionate about anything else, like to the extent that I wanted to pursue it. And again, that's when I started praying the purpose prayers. I just was like, Lord, what am I supposed to be out here doing in these streets? But yeah, that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. That's what I used to say that I wanted to be. I wanted to be an engineering architect. And it's funny because I'm telling you, God will bring things to your remembrance, but it still makes sense because I really have a passion for real estate design and like building structure. Like when I go out of town, I want to see the buildings. I want to see the skyscrapers. I want to see how this city's buildings look different than this city's. Like I love the like structural components of design, from the floors to the wall to the way things are shaped. So yeah, that's what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I am none of the things that I like. I don't know. That's what I wanted to be though. Okay, I think this is the last question, and I'm gonna ask you. I love this because it's such a lighthearted question. What is my favorite '90s sitcom? Listen, um, A Different World. I don't know if that's technically '80s or '90s. I think it's late '80s, early '90s. But A Different World will probably have to be my favorite '90s sitcom, and I'm gonna stand on that. There are so many, that I absolutely love. When TV was real good, Family Matters. But Living Single, ooh, that was a good one too. I'm gonna have to say a different world. I could watch that show front to back, all of the seasons, and not get tired. And every time I watch it, it's like I'm watching a new show. I loved it. I loved everything about it. So again, I love a good lighthearted question. And what a wonderful way to end season 1, episode 1. But before I leave you, I do have to leave you with a crumb, right? And so today's crumb is going to be fear is a very real feeling, but it doesn't have to dictate or control your life. It is, in the best way I've been kind of able to overcome fear here lately is thinking of fear as an illusion. Now, I don't know if fear technically is an illusion because I'm not trying to downplay it, but the way that I overcome it in my mind is like fear is an illusion. And I am thinking about all of these things that could possibly happen. And why is it always that I think about all of the bad things that could happen and not focus so much on the good things that could happen? Like, what if I allowed myself to trust myself and I step out and then all of these amazing things happen? So it would be not to succumb to fear. And that's it for our first episode. Thank you so much for joining me on the couch. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon.